You know, I was covering a story on a case of a missing child, and I got to meet a very interesting person who you're about to meet as well. It was his little girl who was missing, abducted by a strange man from her California home during a slumber party. She was not only Mark's child, I mean, she came to be known as all of our. She was ours. In fact, we called her America's child, Polly Klass. Many of us will never forget the 12-year-old. Polly was abducted at knife point during a slumber party in her own home in Petaluma, California. Thousands of residents from surrounding communities and all throughout the nation lent their support by searching, answering telephone calls, reading thousands of letters, distributing some 2 billion flyers all around the world. You talk about community effort. She was our symbol of love and lost innocence. As I said, we called her America's child, and we were simply outraged when Polly Klass was not found alive, and we demanded change. Polly's father, Mark, is joining us now. Mark Klass, so happy to have you with us. I know these are tough times. I'm not going to ever forget, I think, the day that we found out about Amber, and you came to my office. And I had not quite ever seen you so broken, and I just wonder, every time you hear about another missing child who is not found alive, that steps up your effort so much more. You impress me because you have taken your courage and your pain and your anger and turned it into teaching and empowerment, and I thank you for that, and thank you for having you here today.
Thank you for saying those very nice things.
Yeah, I really mean that. You have you said that day after Amber's body was found that, doggone it, here you go, you have to live through this again. But you were also headed someplace to make a difference. What do you do when you hear things like this that are going to help all of our children?
Well, it doubles my resolve to do something and to try to create solutions in our society. Some of the solutions we'll be talking about tonight, which other marvelous people have come up with, to prevent children from having to find themselves in these compromising situations where the predators can get at them. And these kinds of things can be done from the lowest levels, from teaching toddlers empowerment lessons, from teaching very young children things that they can know to keep themselves out of these situations, to teaching parents how to be better parents and some of the things they can do to protect their children, to teaching parents how to work within their neighborhoods and within their communities to create things like neighborhood watches that have good neighbor houses on every block so that we can all work together, even people without children, to have a place for children to go to feel safe.
I like the idea of the neighborhood, because you have one house that if you're chased by a dog or you're chased by a bully or you feel uncomfortable, you have some place that everybody in the neighborhood knows that you go. Are you finding that neighbors and communities are banding together a bit more, perhaps after Polly's death, after Amber?
Well, certainly things are changing rapidly. I think finally we're starting to get a dialogue in this country regarding children's rights, of which I don't believe there are any, quite frankly. And we have to start creating some of those rights. After all, Rolonda, 1 million children turn up missing every year. There are 3 million cases of child abuse reported every year. If this were happening to white CEOs, then we would certainly do something about it. If this were happening to any other segment of our society, it would be considered an epidemic and we would take action to change it, but it's kids and nothing's happening. Well, I think that there are 77 million moms and dads out there that are very, very concerned about the future of their children, and it is at this point now where we have to get the message to those people in charge of policy in this country to start doing something about it. Some of our politicians, some of our law enforcement officials, certainly some things are being done. You said I was headed someplace the day that we spoke. I was headed to Washington to see President Clinton. He was signing an executive order to mandate that missing children's posters go up in federal buildings. Now, in itself, I don't know how important that is, but it again shows that we have somebody at the highest levels who is at least trying to do something about this issue, something that has never been done by a sitting president. They always seem concerned with budgets and with money, but this is a guy that's really taken on this issue. And
concerned with children.
And is concerned with children and is trying to do something about it.
Someone else trying to do something about it. I want to introduce to you Denise Daniels, a parent's helper. You may have seen her on America's Talking Network. And Denise, you're one who always says, but let's don't startle everyone. Let's don't alarm them. But let's make our nation smarter about keeping our kids safe?
I think what Mark is doing is a perfect example. This is cathartic for all of us, because whether we were involved in Polly's murder or Amber's murder, we were indirectly traumatized as a community, as a country, and we need to come together. That helps us heal, and that's very important. And something I always say in the work I do with children is what's mentionable is manageable. If we can talk about that, come together, empower kids, that's what it's all about.
One of the biggest fears I think that parents have is that when they hear these stories on the news, or someone's talking about it, they're afraid that their kids are going to be so afraid. They're afraid to talk with their kids about something so devastating.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Rolonda, because what we see is it's a natural reaction for parents to want to protect their kids. But the best thing we can do to protect them is teach them about these things before it happens to them. There's so much we can do to help our kids.
Well, that's what we're going to spend this hour doing, how to protect our children. Parents, I have a question for you. What do you think that your own child might do if they were abducted or faced with a situation of almost being abducted? Well, you may be surprised at how some children we tested reacted to a stranger's lure, and these police officers say they're simply shocked. We'll find out about that right after this.